would you train as hard and race marathons if no one else could run? Like, well, I wouldn't.
Are you running a marathon? Oh my god, I could never run a marathon. You sure about that? My god, a marathon is like 42 kilometers, 26 miles. I don't understand those people. That used to be me.
But not anymore. Welcome to the Marathon Podcast. My name is Christian Warwick, aka Warwick Runs on Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. The Marathon Podcast is also on YouTube now, so you can watch the episodes there if you want to. Really appreciate you being here. The numbers have about doubled since last week, so it's been a lot of fun and a great week for the Marathon Podcast. Thank you so much for listening. Before we jump into the conversation today, I want to ask you a simple favor, and that is to give this podcast a review, share it with a friend, and tag the Marathon Podcast on Instagram if you are listening while running. Today we have Ryan Thomson with us. He's a 2:15 marathoner, the first ever Scottish runner on the Marathon Podcast, and I'm stoked for you guys to hear this episode. This conversation with Ryan was great. It kind of felt like two friends catching up, and that is always a good sign. So really just excited for you guys to hear more about Ryan's story. He has ambitions. I think that he will reach his goals, but I would love for you guys to just hear his story and see for yourself. Before we dive into that, I want to talk about something that I'm actually wearing. It's the marathon hat. This week, I got a test sample or a sample for the marathon hat times Seal. Seal, I have no idea how you pronounce that, but Seal Athletics, you are probably familiar with the hats if you are a runner. I'm so stoked about this one. It's a pretty simple design. It has the Marathon Podcast logo on it, but it has a 26.2 in front just to make it super minimalistic, and it's made for runners who are into the marathon, but also any other distances. My goal is also for these hats to kind of become what can sustain the Marathon Podcast sponsorship going forward, so that it makes sense to keep this going in the years to come. If you want to make sure that you get one, there's a limited run of these. Head over to themarathonpodcast.com and pre-order yours today. So with my own running, it's now Wednesday when I'm recording this, and I've been able to run a bit more. Chest is feeling better, lungs are better, really happy about that. So that is a lot of fun. And so I think that I'm heading in the right direction. We'll see if I head over to Valencia for the marathon just to do that as a long run. There are going to be a lot of athletes there, a lot of runners that I've had on the podcast and people that I want to have on. So maybe it's just a great opportunity to do some networking regardless of my run. And tonight, something really cool is happening. The reason why it's midnight and I'm still awake is that I'm gonna surprise one of the Marathon Podcast sponsorship athletes. If you haven't seen the video yet, I suggest that you head over to the Marathon Podcast or Warwick Runs Instagram, because I'm sure that the video is up already. We're gonna surprise one of the Bronx Burners athletes, runners with the sponsorship. He's getting some money or financial support to help him keep on running. He did a 2:40 marathon recently in New York. So really excited to surprise So with this. And this would not have been possible to do without Rob Dalto and the Bronx Burners. So thank you so much. Okay, without any more wasting of time, let's just jump to the conversation with Ryan. Awesome. Ryan, welcome to the Marathon Podcast.
Thank you very much for having me. It's an honor to be here.
I'm very happy to have you here, and I'm gonna be honest with you. Before we jumped on this call, I was telling myself that, okay, Christian, you have to focus because the Scottish accent might be a bit hard for a Norwegian to understand. I went to Scotland a couple of years ago, and my fiance, she was like, just be prepared that it's going to be a bit difficult. And then we were in this grocery store, and this little kid ran up to me. And to this day, I have no idea what he said. He ran up to me and he screamed something at me in Scottish and then ran away. And I still have no idea what he said. So hopefully I'll understand everything that you say.
Yeah, I really do my best. I feel like when my dad speaks, no one can understand him. And even now, when I'm posting videos on YouTube, I need to make sure the subtitles are perfect because the auto-generated subtitles are not good. But unfortunately, I don't have live subtitles yet. Maybe one day in the future we'll have that. I'm just walking around with subtitles over my head.
Yeah. Well, I was watching your YouTube videos and I was like, I should be able to understand this. I think we'll be good, but bear with me.
That's fine. If you need me to repeat anything, I'm used to it. I spent a year in the USA, so I'm very aware that I need to repeat myself sometimes.
Okay. But you are the first Scottish person on the Marathon podcast, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's cool. I was thinking about this earlier. It's like I get to speak for an entire country. So all of my opinions represent the opinions for the whole of Scotland. There we go.
Exactly. So why don't we start with you just presenting yourself and who Ryan is?
Yeah, so I am now a 2:15 marathon runner, but obviously it did not start that way. I started running just after I could walk, I think. Both my parents were runners, and all that I ever wanted to do was run. They made me go swimming to the local swimming club, and I enjoyed it enough, but there was a time when I was a 9-year-old where they wanted me to start swimming before school, and the thought of getting up at 5 a.m. completely freaked me out, as it does now as an adult. I was just like, I don't want to swim anymore. I don't like swimming enough to wake up at 5 a.m. before school. Please just let me run. You guys run. That's all I want to do. And finally, they were like, okay, you can go to the running club. And this is when I was like 9 years old. Up until this point, I'd been going to like run, jump, throw, throwing a foam javelin, doing some long jump. All I liked was a 6-minute run. But anyway, and then, yeah, I didn't see much success from the start. I wasn't terrible, but considering both my parents were runners, there wasn't much talent there. It was a lot of hard work to finish in the top half of any fields. I think I was 79th out of about 100 in my first Scottish cross country at under 13. But then I just gradually got better because I loved it and all I wanted to do was run. I always half joke that I would have ran 100 miles a week when I was 10 years old if I was allowed. But I actually think I might have because that's kind of all I wanted to do. And it wasn't until I was about 15 or 16 that I started to see some success. I actually won still my only ever Scottish title when I was 16 years old at the under 17 age group. That was in 2012. I'm still chasing that high, but still just loved it, always training harder, and ended up going to the USA for a year on a scholarship. So this is 2017, 2018. And up until that point, my parents would still be holding me back, even though I was in my late teens, running 70 miles a week maybe. As soon as I got to America, they put me on 105 miles. And that was the first time, though, that I had ever seen what people better than me were doing, because I do a lot of training on my own. My dad was a good runner. I could see what he had been doing back in the day, but I had never just spent a lot of time with someone. And there was guys out there who ran sub 30 minutes for 10K, which was a big goal of mine. And I could see that they were running 100 to 105 miles a week doing the same training. So it didn't quite register to me that I just could not handle this mileage because I wasn't getting injured, I wasn't getting ill. I was just getting slower and slower all the time. And I was meant to be there for 2 years, came home after 1 year and did not want to go back. I was in the middle of nowhere, Texas. It was not really the correct place for a city boy. Glasgow's not the biggest city in the world, but it's still a city. So yeah, after a year, didn't go back. I came back here and just was running bad, but my dad was always coming out with me on the bike. He was like, "We'll get you in shape, don't worry." And it took me about a year probably to get back after that. And yeah, this was we're now sort of reaching COVID, and I've just been training consistently now for almost 20 years, and it's kind of been amazing the times that I've ran in the past year or so. I made a coaching switch last year, so June of 2024, and the progression I've made even just through that, just from changing the training up a bit, not doing anything crazy different, has just been unbelievable. Like, I'm running times now that I used to, like, admire people that could run them, and it's weird because you when you're 9 or 10, you always think you're gonna make the Olympics and you're gonna be the best runner who's ever lived. We used to go through to the Edinburgh cross country and watch Kenny Sabikele, and I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna be as good as him one day." But then that hope starts to die a little bit, and you become more realistic, and yeah, even like 2, 3, 4 years ago, I never thought I would run 2:15 or ran sub 29 10K in the summer, and it's just kinda been amazing, and I've still got that love for it, and I've probably lost that childish every day can't wait to get out, like, when it's cold in Glasgow, I'm like, "Oh, this is hard, I've been doing this for a long time," but that's just the reality of it, it's not always gonna be the most amazing thing, and I still just love it, and I couldn't imagine my life doing anything else. As much as it's great to have balance in life, I don't think I have consistent balance. When I'm training for a marathon, there's nothing else that I do, or even just a 10K or half marathon, there's not much else that I do. And then I've got that little break afterwards where I live like a normal person and realise, I don't feel that good, I don't have energy, I'm not that happy. What's wrong with me? Oh wait, I've not ran in 3 days. So yeah, it's just I love running and hopefully I've still got a good few years left in me.
Awesome. That honestly felt like a love letter to running. I love that. It's amazing. So, because when you were saying this, my next question was like, who is Ryan outside of running? But it seems like Ryan is running in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I mean, I do like other stuff. Like, I always know that if runs to go away at some point, I still enjoy doing things. Like, I still like going out with my mates, and it's just that that looks a bit different now when I'm training. I like going and going for coffee and traveling, like going and traveling. And yes, traveling is running around the city and exploring it that way usually, but I just really do enjoy that side of it and finding places to train in different cities. But yeah, outside of running is definitely something that I need to work on because there's just like now I've got the YouTube and I'm coaching athletes as well. It's like everything's running. And I know that a lot of people like that escape from it, but I don't really have that. And that's fine with me because I don't feel like I need it. I never felt like needed it. I have looked through training diaries of my mum's from the year I was born, and I'm 2 weeks old and I'm going to races. And it's like, I'm fine with this. This is just the way it's always been, and I'm okay with that. And actually, met my girlfriend through running. She beat me in a park run the first time we met because I had the worst
Awesome.
hangover ever known to man and ran 27 minutes for 5K. So she still got that over me. But yeah, it's very all consuming, as I'm sure you know.
Oh yeah, I think what you were saying about uh, maybe having something else. I also got that question because I made a mini documentary on my journey to Boston Marathon, and how running kind of cured my anxiety, or at least made me feel so much better about myself. Kind of like what you were saying, that something is wrong, I'm not happy, things are not good, and then it's like, why? Well, I haven't been running for a while, and I got the question after I made that was like, so what will you do if you get injured? What happens then? Will you just dig yourself a hole and and spend all your time down there? And at the time I was like, well, I don't know. That's a good question, and it makes sense that you're asking that. But then what I've realized, and I don't know if you can relate to this, that so now I've been sick for weeks and I haven't been able to run like that. But then I've had this podcast, and then I've been able to have running and have, although I haven't been able to run myself and it's been frustrating, I've been still a part of the running community that I've been able to focus on running in a different way. And that has helped me. So it doesn't feel as, call it, empty as it would have felt, I think, if I didn't have that. Because if I just had to work and didn't have the pod, then I think it would have been different. And maybe that's the same for you with the coaching. I don't know.
Oh yeah, definitely. I probably spent the first 15 years of my running thinking that I only cared about my running and all I wanted to do was get better for me. And yeah, I loved the process, but I loved my results and I thought I was really selfish in that way. But starting the coaching, it's like so amazing how much I can care about other people's running. See, when you're waking up on a Sunday at a reasonable hour, waking up at 8 a.m., you go, you sit down, you go on Strava and you see 5 athletes have already done their long run. It's just like unbelievable to see the work that people are putting in. And then if the results don't come, like that affects me as well. And I know that there's coaches out there that maybe don't care as much as that or don't get as invested, but I've not found a way to do that yet. And I don't think I need to find a way to do that. I think it's a good thing, but actually having that, and you get the successes as well. I don't race as much as I would like to because I'm always just got the head down training. I'm not at peak fitness very often in the year. So having people racing every week or every second week, it's exciting and it's good to see that get results. And sometimes with the marathon, as you probably know, it's hard. It doesn't go well for different reasons. And I've only actually recently found because I'd spent a good chunk of time with the coach and getting really good results. And I was like, this is amazing. I feel great. This is so good. You get the other side of that as well. And I'm glad that it took so long in the coaching to realize you get the other side of that. But yeah, you definitely do. And I think for me, outside of running as well, if I got sick or injured, it's just about having goals. And it doesn't even have to be performance goals. When I was injured, I set myself the goal of cross training for 10 hours a week. And sometimes I would get to Friday and I've only done like 2 or 3 hours. So I'm like, okay, well, here we go. And I would just
That's crazy.
yeah, just having that goal got me out and got me to the gym. And I came back and I was running really well. And it was just having something. It wasn't like I need to be able to do this pace on the bike or swim this fast. It was just no matter what it is, as long as my heart rate averages over 100 beats per minute, that was how I got myself out, like on the bike, helping people. I was like, okay, if I'm going out an easy jog with someone on the bike, we can't count that as cross training. But actually, if we're going quite hard on the bike, then that counts. So yeah, just having goals as well really helps me. But it's
Yeah, I
everybody's
think that's,
different.
yeah, but I think at least, I think the people that I talk to here, that's the same kind of thing. And I think that's maybe especially for people who are finding running later on in life, that is something that we all have in common, that you either missed having a goal or you want to have a goal because, you know, life catches up with you in a way where you just do things on a daily basis. You go to work 9 to 5 and that's what it is. But I think that at least for me, that is something that really was missing when I found the marathon, was that I was used to having goals for most of my life. And then all of a sudden, like, my business that I built was kind of just, okay, this is now just rolling, right? Like, I don't have to stress about it. I don't have to be ambitious about it anymore because things are going pretty well. And then it was like, okay, I need something. I need something in my life where I can start working towards it, you know. And it might sound dramatic when you say that you need to have something to wake up to in the morning, but for me, that is kind of it, where I need to have some purpose. And for me, that is the marathon. And I think that's what a lot of people can relate to. That's why people are so obsessed with running, I think. I'm sure there are more reasons too, but just having that is important.
Yeah, there's no hiding with a marathon. You can pick other sports, team sports, and just kind of hide in the corner, but
Yeah.
you get out what you put in. most of the time when it comes to the marathon.
Yeah, definitely. There was one thing that I don't think you mentioned. It could be that I just didn't hear it. But how old are you?
I'm 29.
29. So
Yeah.
you have a lot of years of marathon running left.
Yeah, my dad ran all his best times when he was 31, but
Yeah.
he started running at 14, so it's my running age that concerns me. I have a lot of miles in these legs. I
Yeah.
know that a lot of people go for a long time, but yeah, that's a lot of miles, so I'm not sure. I'll just keep going until I can't anymore.
I like that attitude. We're obviously gonna talk more. I'm curious about how you got to a 2:15 marathon, but I want to backtrack it to what you were saying about starting out and you just loved running. It seemed like you were just passionate about the sport itself, going out to to run, and you had, I don't know if it was years, but at least a long time of no results, and yeah, for a while there. And why do you think that it was that you were able to just keep that up when you were young? How old were you at the time?
So I would say that I seriously started about 9, and
Yeah.
I was getting better, but I didn't see anything that was particularly noteworthy till I was about 15.
Because that is pretty impressive. I mean, even as a kid, and I'm sure some people would be like, yeah, but he was just 9 years old. But even as a kid, like, what drives you is usually progress or seeing that you're getting better or that you're beating others, and just being persistent like that is pretty impressive. Why do you think that you were able to, for then 5 to 6 years, just go out every day and still find that motivation?
I think for me, as a child, I was incredibly quiet. I actually met guys who I went to school with a few weeks ago, and they were like, "Oh, we didn't know you spoke." Because until I was about 15 or 16 at school, I didn't really speak to anyone. But when I went running, like, I just loved my friends there. We used to go 3 days a week, Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. We would train, and it was actually on the other side of the city from where I live. My mum used to drive me there at rush hour, 45 minutes each way. And yeah, I just loved it. And I think I was seeing enough progress to know that I was getting better and that actually the work that I was putting in was working, because I would usually turn up to a school cross country race and come seventh, and it was just like 3 or 4 of the local schools, and I like can't even beat people who aren't runners. And then it would get to the point where, okay, I'm the best runner in the schools around here, and okay, actually I'm moving up against people. And I guess there's probably a part of I just didn't really know any different because my parents were runners and they were always doing their training. My mum was running up until I was about 10, 11 years old, and my dad still runs just now. So there wasn't really anything different for me, but I don't know why it was running, because actually I did table tennis for a bit and I was pretty good at it, just naturally good at table tennis. I my first
That's also something to be naturally good at. That's pretty unique.
I know, and I was like, I won my first ever competition, the West of Scotland Championships. And I think that was my last competition. I was just like, yeah, it's fun, but it's just table tennis. I want to run. And
You left it while you were on top.
yeah, I was like, that's it. I'll take that trophy and I'll be on my way. You'll see me at the wet, muddy cross country race if you ever need me. But yeah, I think honestly, the people that were around when I was running, my friends from my club, the people who I was racing against, I just kind of felt like that's where I was supposed to be, which sounds pretty cringe as well. But yeah, it was nobody in school really wanted to talk about running, and I always just loved running. And I did, I got a Scottish schools vest when I was 14, so that was kind of my first ever Scotland vest. I finished 6th at the Scottish schools, which was basically just meant that everyone, the age group was different, and everyone who was really good moved up an age group, and I was lucky that I managed to stay in the same age group and get that Scotland vest. So I was doing things that were decent enough and making me feel like I was good. Like in my head, I was always a great runner. I just hadn't quite shown it yet. And I don't know why I've always had that kind of stubborn belief. I've still got it now. I still think I'm faster than I am, even though I'm running these times. I'm like, wow, how did I do that? I'm still like, I think I could do better. And yeah, I don't, because being from Scotland, I don't know if I just didn't notice it when I was young, but the weather is so bad. Sometimes it's just so cold and wet and windy. And I was just out there, and there was never a reason not to do it. And I think my parents always held me accountable for that as well. It was like, okay, if you want to run, then we're going training. And it was never for me, I don't want to go. But there was never kind of the option to not go. And I don't mean that in the way that they forced me. My parents would never have forced me to run. When I first told my dad I wanted to run, he was like, okay, running's really hard. So you have to love it. And you can never force anyone to run. So if you ever don't want to run, you have to tell us. But that thought was never at the front of my mind. Like it was just, I'm going training tonight. And actually, if I was off sick from school, being like, please can I go training? And my mom being like, no, you're not going training. You were off sick from school. Yeah.
Wow, that's cool. But it makes me curious when you're talking about this. You know, I feel like we might have to talk a little bit about your parents and their running background. You said that your mom was running until you were 10. Your dad's still running to this day. What level were they at? Were they, recreational runners just having fun, or were they competitive?
No, they were pretty competitive, but they both worked full time. So they were fitting their training around their work. My dad ran 30:06 for 10K, never quite snuck under the 30 minutes, and a 2:22
That's
marathon.
fast.
Yeah, he was a good runner. He was from
And what
his
was the marathon you said?
2:22.
Wow.
Yeah, from his point of view, I think he was the least talented runner ever. He finished last in his first race, I believe, and again just went out and did the work. And his marathon is his least proud PB because he just didn't take on any fuel. I think he got to 22 miles and just all of a sudden crashed because drinking water isn't enough. But this was like the late 90s. And my mum was actually more of a 1500-meter runner. I think she ran around 4:30 for the 1500 and was finishing in the top three in Scottish Championships. So she was actually probably better in comparison. It's just that my dad had a longer career. My mum had a lot of knee issues. My dad had a lot more team medals as well. His team was a lot better, and he was always sneaking in as the fifth or sixth guy. And just so, yeah, they were very good runners, and that's what I was always surrounded by. I always used to go out on the bike with my mum when she did her long run. I guess it's because she was a little bit slower and didn't go quite as far as my dad's. My dad would probably have been like, no, he'll slow me down, he's no coming. But I do have memories of going out in the canal on the bike with my mum.
Awesome. That's fun, and I assume that is also why running feels so much more special to you. You know, whether that is something you think about or that you're aware of, but just it makes it more special. And how much would you contribute to them, and how big of a part have they been or played in your career as like coaches or I don't know, guides in your training?
Oh yeah, like everything. I wouldn't even have known running was a thing if it wasn't for my parents. And then they didn't actually start coaching me until I got back from America in 2018. And that was a bit because my dad was like, you're coming with me. We're doing what I say now because this is not how you're supposed to run. You're not meant to be running these times. Like, you can run faster than that. And it was only supposed to be a temporary thing when they started coaching me. It was like, okay, we'll just get you back to fitness and then you can go and get another coach. But I just kept getting better pretty much since 2018. Once I got found my feet again, mid 2019, I was just running PBs all the time. And then COVID happened and I was still getting better. So they actually coached me from 2018 until 2024. And it just kind of got to the point where I was struggling a bit in the marathon. I'd never quite ran what I thought was my potential in the marathon. And I think at that point I'd done 3. And it's great when it's going well, but when it's not going well and the 3 of you are living together and you are trying to find out why it's not going well, it is kind of all on you. And it was a bit like, okay, do we actually know what we're doing here? We're, we weren't like, we were using the sessions and the workouts that they had done in the past and try to learn from other people on Strava. And it was working. I was running great, but I just felt like I kind of needed that switch in 2024. And I think that it's definitely helped a lot because now if I have a bad marathon, which I've not really since, but if I have a bad race, it's not like, oh, what have we done wrong? It's just one of those things. It's okay, well, I'll discuss it with my coach and we'll see. And they still come to every race. My dad's always out on the bike with me and like I'm still living with him, so I still get that financial support of staying there. And it is just, it was amazing being coached by them because the wins were our wins and we had done it just us. And but actually, I think moving away when I did in summer of last year was definitely the right decision and has helped a lot. I don't need to think about what I'm doing. One of the issues of being coached by your parents or someone that's close to you is if they tell you to do 10 by a K, you say, well, last week I did 12, so why can we not do 12? And there's no, like, I would always win. It was never, no, Ryan,
Yeah.
this is why we're doing it. Because in my head, I had then ran faster than my dad, and I was like, oh, but this worked for me in the past, so why don't we just do more? And now with my coach, he sends me the training, and I say, sounds great, cheers, and I do it,
Okay.
and that's it. Yeah. I don't know what he would say if I tried to argue it. I don't imagine it would go down
Yeah.
well. I may as well just do what I'm told. It's working anyway.
Yeah, that makes sense. I want to ask you more about the training and the switch and all of that. But before we do, I'm curious about how you got to the marathon because obviously you've been running for a very long time. And I'm sure in your younger years you had shorter distances. And I don't know what distances you were running in the US. But when did you decide that, okay, the marathon is something that I'm going to start pursuing?
So during COVID, we had the Commonwealth Games coming up. So there was Commonwealth Games in 2022 and the standards got released early 2021, I'd like to say. And I looked at the standards and I looked at the distances that I had ran, and I was like, well, I'm not getting anywhere near those. I know that I can't run 13:40. I know that I can't run 28 minutes. The marathon time was 2:15. And I was like, I think I could maybe run that. So 2021, I decided full focus on the London Marathon. It was in October that year. And trained for the marathon. I did really good training, but it wasn't marathon training. I was probably in great half marathon shape, but I wasn't ready for the marathon. And yeah, I went out there, tried to run 2:15. Me and a few other Scottish guys who also thought 2:15 was 2:15, that's in the bag, and that's only like 5:10s. We can do that. No, I got to 12 miles and started getting like terrible cramp. Because I'd done all my hard training on the treadmill. I'd done like 15-mile tempos on the treadmill. My legs got on the roads in London. We're like, what are you doing? No, this is too much. We can't do this. Just calf started cramping up. And yeah, didn't go well. I stopped 11 times to stretch my calves and ran 2:37. I had to finish. In my head, I was like, I need to finish. My dad had told me, that's too fast. You can't run 2:15. You're not in that shape. Consider going out slower. And I think had I listened to him, there was maybe like a 2:22 to 2:24 in me that day at the best, but there was never a 2:15 in me. It just was never ever going to happen. And I see that now, and I'm happy to admit that I was wrong. Didn't give the marathon the respect it deserved. So that was October 2021. After I got myself out of a mini retirement, I gave myself a shake, got back into training, and went back to shorter distances, which is what I'd always focused on. Like growing up, you run the 800, you run the 1500, you do cross country. And I think before that marathon, it was sort of like 5Ks, 10Ks for me. And that's what I went back to. Even 3K indoors, I went back to in early 2022. And I was absolutely flying. I was in the best shape of my life. I think I'd just built up such a great base from the marathon training. And when I said in 2017, 2018, so that's when I was like 21, I wasn't able to hit 100 miles. I wasn't able to handle it. For that marathon, I actually could handle 100 miles. And it was just that I hadn't done the big specific marathon sessions. So I think all those 100-mile weeks with the good half marathon sessions really carried me into 2022. And I ran my 3K PB, I ran my 5K PB, I ran a good 10K. And it wasn't until then, December of 2023, so over 2 years later, that I went back to the marathon and ran 2:18, which was a 19-minute PB, which was nice. And I just learned so much by that point in terms of the training. The training had completely shifted from what I'd been doing in 2021 to what I'd done in 2023. But it was just amazing. Like, when I was training for that marathon, I never ever thought I would run another 5K PB or a 3K PB. And it's just amazing what being really, really fit does to the shorter distances. And yeah, I love that 2022 post marathon because I feel like for me, not so much anymore, but back in 2021, like that marathon could have retired me because I was like, okay, I'm not good enough to make any teams over the shorter distances. But that marathon was like a dangling carrot, and I was like, I could make the Commonwealth Games if I can run 2:15. And then to see that I just absolutely could not run 2:15, it was hard. It was not an easy thing to get back from. And I'm so glad that I did. And actually seeing the results that I got post marathon builds was
Yeah.
unbelievable to me.
Yeah, because when you're talking about this, you have me thinking about. We talk a lot about, or at least I feel like the big discussion is: do you need more speed to be faster in the marathon? Do you need more endurance? Because there are different approaches to this. Some people would argue that if you just work on your threshold work, then you will get faster. And some people are saying that you'll need to get faster before you can work on your threshold, because otherwise you won't have that top speed. And I feel like you've kind of tried both things. And in some ways you come from speed, but then you realize that was not good enough, and then you start working on your endurance, and then you get faster on the shorter distances too. So like the more endurance made you faster on the shorter distances, and then I don't know what your take is on that in terms of marathon training.
I think that for me, it's an endurance thing, that all of my best performances come from when I've been really, really fit. And it's been amazing. Like when I made the switch to my coach, he was like, "Why are you doing so much speed work? You're an endurance guy. You need to just do threshold and do long sessions and put a little bit of speed in there. Don't completely neglect it, but you shouldn't be focusing whole sessions on it." And I honestly don't think I realized that this was true until the start of this year. I had spent about 8 weeks doing just threshold work. I was running about 5:05 per mile at the fastest, so that's what, about 3:10 per K. And that's all I was doing, double thresholds from January into February. And then get my Sunday text from my coach. Friday, we're doing 6x800 with 2.5 minutes recovery. I was like, are we? Okay, here we go. And I'm thinking, right, I think I can run these in about 2:20. but I have no idea because I've not even touched that sort of pace. Went out in the first one and ran 2:18. I was like, okay. I mean, I felt like I was sprinting the entire way, but could probably do another one of those. Got to the last rep and it was 2:12. And I'm just like, I have not ran that fast in months, even probably close to 6 months because I'd been marathon training before that. And at that point, I was like, that's interesting. I wonder how like that'll actually translate to a race. And it translated to like my best run of racing performances ever. And it wasn't that there was no speed work in there because I do hill sprints every week, 8 by 8 second hills, just as hard as possible with 2 minutes recovery. And that's my speed work all year round. And I think that must have helped. I mean, it takes like 20 minutes every week, so I hope that it helps. But yeah, it's always just been an endurance thing. I don't think that I've got that much speed in me. I can't run that quick, no matter how many 150s or 200s I do. I'm going to max out at like maybe 26 seconds for a 200. I mean, that's probably back when I was like 18 or 19. It's just doesn't really matter. Like, my thinking now is, okay, if I do a lot of speed work all the time, I might improve by a second at the most over 200. But actually, if I can just get really, really fit and really keep getting fitter, then I can improve by even more than that, just over the longer distances. And I think my ceiling is a lot higher in the endurance side of it, just because I'm such an endurance athlete.
But what would you say? So, say to someone like me, who I used to be a speed skater, and most of the things that I did was very, endurance specific. And I guess, like, in some ways, you could say that it's also a bit more explosive since the racing time for me was between 4 and 7 minutes for most of my races. But in terms of running, then like my threshold pace, and I use kilometers, so my threshold pace is now around 335 to 340 ish. Um, and what I saw was that I improved when I was just doing threshold work. But you are coming from obviously shorter distances where you have more speed in you. But if you are, say, you were my coach or the people you are coaching, what would you recommend for them in terms of getting faster or being able to say, if my goal was to have a 320 average for a marathon, would you then kind of give me mostly threshold work still, or would you then prescribe me more speed work to be able to hit that pace? What is your approach to that?
Usually, I would focus on the endurance side of it and prescribe a lot of threshold, but there's a little bit of speed in there. It's mostly in the form of strides or even every 2 to 3 weeks, just doing like a harder, faster session. My coach likes to prescribe 5 sets of 3 minute, 2 minute, 1 minute with just 1 minute rolling recovery between everything. So you're able to run pretty fast and it's hard, but you're still getting that volume in because you're still out there for like 45 minutes at least. And even if you add on a 6 set, if you really fancy it, you're getting a good chunk of volume in there, but you're not sacrificing the speed. And I don't think that you can get too locked into running slow for too long. I think there always needs to be a little bit of speed in there, but having whole sessions dedicated to it every week may not be the best way to go about it. Having, say, 2 weeks of thresholds and then the next week a threshold session on Tuesday and then a speed session on Friday. And just keeping that speed in there, but always maintaining your strides, if that's hill strides, if that's flat strides, just anything that's going to get you quicker. Because at the end of the day, if you can't run 320s for a 5K or even a 10K, you can't do it for a marathon. So it again depends on whether or not you want to step back and just say, I'm going to do a 10K block at the moment and just really train for a 10K. And I do think that the best marathon blocks come when you're starting them in really great 5K and 10K shape. because you've got that speed and you can just build the endurance on top of it. For me, I always find that if marathon pace feels quick, I'm going to struggle no matter what. Even if I'm fit enough to run a marathon at a certain speed, if I'm running the first 5K thinking, oh wow, this is fast, just mentally, I don't think I'm going to be able to do it. So I think you need to have a bit of speed reserve in there. It's not just, okay, I can run 3:19 for a K. Now I'm going to go and run a marathon at 3:20s. It's going to be so hard.
Yeah, for sure. I agree with you. I think that the marathon is so mental, you know. It's you need to be have that confidence and you need to feel good. And uh, I actually did have kind of that feeling the spring in Boston after 7K, where I was like, how am I gonna make it to the finish line? And then I really, you know, my mental game was really tested. I was able to finish, but it's really hard to say if I could have pushed more or not. It's impossible. But it's like you said, it's not a good feeling when you, after 7K of a marathon, feel like you're already really struggling. That's not how it's supposed to be.
The marathon is just so hard. Like, I've every marathon has just tested me in a different way. And you think you know the marathon, and then you do one, and you're like, "Wow, okay, I didn't know that." And
No,
there's
that is something that I learned to the hard way. I was like pretty, you know, I was telling people with confidence like, oh, the marathon is supposed to be this and that. That's how it's gonna feel. And then I ran another one. I was like, you know what? That was a very different experience. And then I ran yet another one. I was like, oh, that was also a different experience. So it's not, yeah, it's kind of like you said, every marathon has its own life.
yeah, and I'm still trying to figure it out. I've done 5 now, and it's tough. No matter how good the training block goes, something can happen, something can derail it. Like, my most recent marathon was just so hot, and I was like, "Oh, well, that's the PB kinda gone even before you start." I just having to adjust goals, and you learn stuff. Like, it's very difficult for me to replicate 24 degrees Celsius in Glasgow. I can tell you that. It's
Yeah.
even in the height of the summer, it's tough, so
But your 2:15 marathon, will you say something about how you got there? Because what did you say that you did was it 2:18 for that marathon that you were talking about earlier? And then did you have any marathons between 2:18 and 2:15? Or was the next one 2:15?
yes, so I ran 2:37 in 2021, and then my next marathon was December of 2023, which was a 2:18, and that was Valencia. And then I went to London in April of 2024, and I'd had the best training block ever, like the perfect training block, standing on the start line thinking there's no possible way this could go wrong. I have absolutely smashed every single session. I'm gonna run like 2:12 and it's gonna be amazing. And I ran 2:21, so 3 minutes slower than I'd ran in my previous one. And then that's when I made the coaching switch, just after that, and then ran 2:15 in Valencia 2024. So it wasn't exactly smooth sailing to the 2:15. My Both my best marathons have come in Valencia, but I do think it was just a case of actually doing the training that suited me. So I've somehow managed to find myself in with a group of guys who are way better than me at the marathon. I went to Kenya with Phil Sessman and Emil Caress, and seeing what they did every day, again, same as America, I was like, well, that's what I need to be doing. So in that London build, after I'd ran 2:18, I was running up to 130 miles a week. And the sessions were going really, really well because I was just in great shape. Like, I was running 130 miles a week. I was really fit. And I got to the race, and I do think probably 3 or 4 weeks before that was when I was in my best shape. But got to the race and it didn't go well. And then I switched to my coach in the June after London. And he was just like, no, we're not going to run that much. We're going to run about 105 miles, but we're going to really smash the sessions. They're going to be much better than the ones you were doing. And I think it's just such a fine balance because if, for example, you're going out and you're doing marathon sessions at 320 per K, you're thinking, well, this is great, this is really good, this is my ceiling. But if you brought the mileage back a bit and you start doing these sessions at 316, 317 per K, then all of a sudden you're like, oh, wait a minute, I could have done more in my last marathon block. And it's really finding that balance. And I was always of the school of thought that the more you do, the better. But I've learned that's not the case because I've had periods of running 130 miles a week. And my half marathon PB still comes from that time. But every other PB, 10K and marathon have both come when I've been running a lot less than that. And I think that was the thing about the 215 is the training was manageable. I was never hanging on or thinking, I really need this marathon to come along. I was getting out every Tuesday and every Friday and just doing what had to be done. And I was running easy in my easy runs, and it felt like I wasn't doing that much, which sounds ridiculous because I was running about 105 miles a week. But see, taking that 25 miles off the top, it's like some days I was just going out once per day. I didn't even have to double, and it was amazing. And it was, I definitely found a bit more balance with life doing it that way as well. Like, I was probably like enjoying things outside of running a bit more, not in like a crazy way. I was walking down the street and getting coffee, and it's not. But when you run so much, you don't get to do that. And I think it was just a mixture of all those factors. And I've also suffered a lot with cramp in marathons. I get cramp basically every marathon that I do. And I've not 100% found a way around that yet. So I still feel like I've not completely fulfilled my potential in the marathon. But then again, it is so difficult to say whether that London would have been a 213, 214 had I not gotten cramp, or like because the Valencia that I ran 215, I didn't get as much cramp. It's like I actually was in better shape for that London when I was running 130 miles a week. And again, the marathon is really hard and really complex, and you never really know. You just kind of need to do what you think is best. And I've now just put all my trust into my coach, and especially with the results that we got at the shorter distances. As I say, my 10,000 from June, where I ran 28:57, I sub 29 for me was like this massive pipe dream that I never thought possible at all
It's
until,
really fast.
yeah, I mean, I still look at that time and I'm like, did I do that? But then again, you're like looking at the Valencia 10K in January and you're like, I wonder if I could go quicker. How much quicker could I go? And I think it's good. I always like to just have the night after the PB and just sit with it and be like, that was amazing. I did something great. I can be proud of that. And then it's not a case of just move on right away, which I know that people do. And I think you never know when it's going to be your last PB or when you're never going to run quicker again. And just after that sub 29, I was like, no, this is amazing. It was like a 9 p.m. race, so obviously I'm still awake at 4 a.m., just lying in bed going, oh, I'm so great, this is amazing, I can't believe I just done something so incredible. And then you wake up the next day and you go out training again and you're thinking, right, when can I get another one? When can I maybe go a little bit quicker? Or I finished 4th at the British Champs, so I was like, oh, if I was just like 3 seconds quicker, I would have got a British medal. And you always, that's what keeps you going, and that's what makes you hopefully keep getting faster, is always having that drive to get better. But also you need to enjoy the wins because there's no point in going out and slogging away at 100+ mile weeks if you're just going to say, oh, that was good, right? What we do next?
Nah, I totally agree with you, and I can relate to that. And I've been saying it before on the pod too that I always, whenever, like after my marathons, I'm super happy, and I'm maybe for a couple of days I'm walking around, and I'm sure this is an arrogant thought, but I walk around and like maybe I'm the fastest marathoner in this area right now. Like if I'm walking down the river and just like, I bet no one here that's done like a 2:47 marathon. And then I have no idea if someone like you was walking there and it's like a 2:15 marathoner. But then it pretty quickly, especially with social media, and now that I have this podcast, I have so many fast runners on that I'm like 2:47. That's nothing. I need to really start working. So I enjoy it for a few days, and then I'm back at it with like, okay, I need to work harder so I can get to a point where that is actually the case almost wherever I go. I think that is always what, at least for me, that's been kind of what's driven me to get to that point. I remember back when I was a full-time athlete, I liked sitting in a room and thinking that I was the fittest person in there, not by looks, but just like with VO2 max and all of that. And such a narcissistic thought, really. I'm not really proud of it, but I'm trying to be honest and transparent on this pod. So that's just how I feel.
Well, so my thought on this is, would you train as hard and race marathons if no one else could run? Like, well, I wouldn't. I love running. I would just go out running and train, but you're obviously comparing yourself to other people, because
Yeah,
if
and
no one else did it, then
I got that answer, and that actually made me pretty happy with my last marathon. Then the last 10K obviously is super hard, and then the reason why I kept on pushing was the thought of how happy I would be if I finished strong. There were no thoughts in my head of like, oh, this will look good on Strava, or these people will tell me that I was good, or I'm better than anyone else. It was just that I want to go to bed tonight and be happy. And I knew that I had a goal, and that goal would make me happy. And so actually, like, kind of based on what I was just saying, sometimes I feel like, oh, maybe I have the wrong motivation or the wrong intentions with my running. And then those last 10K kind of proved to me that, okay, I'm actually doing this for myself. This is something that I love doing. And I also realized that whether it's this podcast or my business, that I love growth. So just being able to see that, and with a podcast, it's actually fun because no one's able to see the numbers, right? It's just for me. So I'm the only one seeing it, and as long as there's growth, then I'm happy. If it starts kind of like going backwards, then I'm, what's going on now? Then I have to change some things, but if, as long as there's growth, then I'm happy, and that's kind of what's driving me, I think.
yeah. And I think that definitely is the thing that I tell my athletes. It's like you're trying to make your bad days better as well. And we're not just seeing growth because, wow, we smashed a session that we could never have done before, or we ran a time that we could never have ran before. Like, well, now your bad days, if you look at your bad day from last year, like, you're never going to run that slow now. You're just not. And that's the growth as well. And for me, in my most recent marathon in Berlin, it was a 2:21, which is a time I've ran before, 6 minutes slower than my PB. But there was a lot of good to come from that. And I don't feel like I've went backwards necessarily. I'm actually quite certain I've not went backwards. Like, I had a good training block. There was a lot of good that came from it. It's just the weather didn't play ball, and that's one of those things. And I adjusted my goals for that, and I actually feel like I definitely grew a lot in that training block and in that marathon, even though it wasn't a step forward on my World Athletics
Yeah.
profile.
I think that's a great way of looking at it, and I definitely think that's something that will make you better in the end, right? And especially if you have a long-term perspective on it, then it's just like an obstacle on the way to the results that you want at some point, right? And at least that's what I'm trying to tell myself, that, oh yeah, this is a marathon that I'm doing now, but my long-term goal is way ahead. And so in a lot of ways, this doesn't really matter. I can learn from this, or I can have a little bit of progress, but as long as I feel like I'm on my way to something, then I'm happy with that. And yeah, I feel like that's what you are saying too. And I was when you said that you're kind of running times today that you never thought possible, with a marathon, and obviously that is a result of all of your training and the work that you put in. And you mentioned a couple of times the switch in training. What would you say that was the biggest difference in your training, and what do you think that, other than the mileage, why do you think that you've been able to get to a point where you're a 2:15 marathoner?
I think there's a lot more focus on the big marathon sessions. We're doing probably 10 to 12 long runs, and they're not like they're not all hard marathon long runs. Like, for example, one of them would maybe be 2 miles easy, 8 miles at 20 seconds slower than marathon pace. So for me, like 5:30s, then a mile easy, and then 8 by 1 mile at marathon pace with 1 minute jog recovery. And then you make that up to like 21 miles. So things like that, I'm doing something like that every week and just really getting the legs used to running hard for a long time. In that kind of session, I would do that on a Friday, and then on the Sunday, I would go and do 2 hours easy. So I'm doing like another almost 30K of running on the Sunday. And I think that it's just a lot more marathon focused. Probably the one issue with my parents' coaching is that they didn't have the super shoes. I think now the best thing about the super shoes is you can just do more and you can recover more. And that's the thing that you need to be taking advantage of. And if they did one of those hard long runs on a Friday and then tried to go out and do another long run on the Sunday, like, it just wouldn't happen. And then going and trying doing like a half marathon style session on the Tuesday, like, it's a difficult thing to do. And I don't think we ever quite found that. We were pushing the mileage, but we were never pushing the envelope when it came to like the hard long runs. And I was doing them because, as I said, I'd seen people a lot quicker than me doing these hard long runs. Like, one look at Phil Sessman's Strava will tell you that he does a lot of these hard long runs, but I probably just wasn't doing them enough. And there wasn't the complete laser focus necessarily. Like, 3 weeks before my 2:21 marathon, I ran the Scottish 10 mile champs. And yeah, I was just kind of doing it in the training week. I did it at the end of a 130 mile week. But now my coach is just like, no, we're not doing that. We're doing exactly what is going to get you to the marathon in the best shape. And that's maybe it. I mean, it has its perks. I've now run 3 minutes quicker than I did when I was being coached by my parents. But it's difficult, for example, in my most recent block where it was really hot and I ran 2:21. I kind of don't have anything to show for that because I never raced in the whole block because we were just so focused on the training. And I got myself into great shape. I think that I was the fittest that I've ever been on that Berlin Marathon start line. But sometimes the weather just isn't going to play ball, and that's it. But yeah, it's just, I trust my coach 100%. It's that relationship that we've got. He knows what we're doing. He knows what we want to do. And I get the training on a Sunday and I do it. And it has been really different for me. I probably didn't know myself that well like 5 years ago. I kind of thought after my experience in America that I didn't really like being told what to do all the time. I like to have some input in my training. But actually, it just turns out I don't like being told that I have to wake up at 6 a.m. to do a session. And I actually love being told what to do in training.
So, in terms of your mileage, have you kind of found that 105 miles? I guess that's around 170 kilometers a week. Is that kind of your sweet spot for the mileage?
So, yeah, that's what we did in the first block where I ran 2:15. I probably bumped that up a little bit to more 110 in the most recent Berlin build. And that was always the plan, was we're going to have a lot of marathon blocks together. So we will nudge that mileage back up, and you might get back up to maybe 120, but we're going to do it without sacrificing the sessions. And he told me at the start of the training block, like 110 max on this block. This is the Berlin block. If you want to go to 115, you have to ask me first. And I think I hit 115 once, and it was because we did a big double session. We did like a Canova special block, which was like 55k in one day. And I messaged him and was like,
Wow.
yeah. I messaged him after that and was like, hey, by the way, just to let you know, if you want me to do the long run on Sunday, I'm going to run like 2 miles tomorrow. He was like, okay, you can go to 115 this week. I was like, thanks. But yeah, that was like a big day. And that was a change in this block as well. So in the last training
What
block,
was that? What did that day look like when you have 55k in one day?
so the morning session was 10k at 90% of marathon effort. So I ran 10k in about 3:16 per k. And then I did 6 by 2k at marathon pace or slightly quicker. So that's 22k in the morning, and then I went home, had a sleep, and did the 10k at 90% of marathon effort again in the afternoon, straight into 10 by a k. So that's another 20k. So it was 42k hard, plus I've got my warm up and cool down. It ended up being 55k. And actually, I think I'd built it up in my head so much to be terrible that it was completely fine. Like,
But
I
how were your legs after?
Eh, that night they were a little bit sore, but actually the next day I was like completely fine. And I don't know why that was. I've never figured this out. Maybe this is a question for the listeners. But in previous marathon blocks, I've done 40k hard. So I'm going out and I'm running 40k pretty close to marathon pace. Like, actually, if I'd kept going one of the times, it would have been a marathon PB. And then the next day I go out and I train and I'm fine, doing easy run. But after a marathon, I can barely walk. It's like so bad, and I've never figured out why that is. I think it could be something to do with the fact that I usually get cramp in the marathons, but there's a lot of people who hobble around on marathon weekend that don't get cramp. So I don't know, but
It almost sounds like you should approach a marathon just like a training run.
yeah, no, I should just run it at the end of like a 110-mile week. Like this. So after Berlin, I had two complete opposite thoughts. I was like, either we don't run another marathon for like a year and a half until next year's Valencia, or we just run like 6 marathons in the spring and we just do them like training and we just smash them. And my coach was like, that's a terrible idea. We're not doing that. So it's looking likely that it might be Valencia 2026 in the next marathon, but it's just so difficult to know what's right for you because there is people who can do back-to-back marathons and recover from them. And I think it would be hard for me because I come off a marathon and it's kind of like deflating a balloon. It's just like, oh, okay, now I can go to the pub with my mates. I can do these things. I can go traveling, not have to worry about waking up early for a run. And the marathon is always just the focus. Everything in that last 3 months is, okay, when's the marathon? Okay, what are we doing today? So I think I would probably struggle to do more than one. I like to think in my head that I could do it physically, but I think mentally it would maybe be a bit of a challenge because the marathon is such a great, amazing day. And there is always that little bit of a come down. And probably if I wasn't full focused on it necessarily, it wouldn't go as well as I would hope.
Exactly. No, I think that is kind of finding the balance, and it's probably individual differences on that too. Some people should just approach it as a normal long run, and some people need to get that adrenaline up to even be able to perform at all. But interesting discussion, and maybe that is, like you said, a question for the listeners. So comment on the podcast what their experience is and why they think that it is that you can do long runs hard and then go out the day after and just do running like you do normally, and then after a marathon you have to take a week off. That's a good question to ask the listeners.
Yeah,
I,
but sorry, I was just gonna say, because it's not even like it's just the next day. Like I'm still walking like on Thursday
yeah,
and Friday
exactly.
even.
Yeah. So we've already talked for an hour and 6 minutes here. I do have some questions to you, for you about, bicarb and Nomio, because I know that you are using those products for your running. But before we talk about that, I'm just curious. It sounds like, just like a lot of runners, that most of your training is still at low intensity. Are you good at keeping that to very low intensity, or do you kind of, even on the easy days, or are you able to keep it too easy?
Yeah, I
You're
love
laughing.
an easy run. I love running easy. Like my dad still now runs his easy pace at 7 minute mile pace, which is what, like 4:30 something. I don't even know. But he is running pretty close to his 10K pace on his easy runs, and that's just the way it was done back in his day. But for me, I love going out and jogging. Like it never feels as slow as actually it is. Like I was running 8 minute miles on my easy run yesterday, and that's what, almost 3 minutes slower than my marathon pace. It doesn't feel 3 minutes slower than my marathon pace. Like I just I don't look at my watch when I'm on these easy days. I just go out and I'll know sort of how far I want to go. It's usually somewhere between 8 and 12 miles in the morning. And I'll just go out and I'll run for about that, and then I'll start looking at my watch towards the end, but sometimes I'll, like, cover the screen a bit so I can only see the distance. Because if I see that I'm running 8 minute mile pace, I will want to speed up. Like, I'm not a robot here, I want to
Yeah.
run a bit
No.
quicker.
Exactly.
But, yeah, I do, I love an easy run, it's great, and I try and get a bit of running in with my girlfriend when I can. I don't so much on the like, when I'm really specifically training for a race, because if her marathon pace is 2 minutes per mile slower than mine, like we should be running at different speeds, and I don't want her to run too fast or me to want to push on a bit. It's like, so actually, I just go out and jog by myself usually. But if we're running together, it's even slower than I would usually run by myself, and I love that. Mileage is mileage at the end of the day. That's what I feel. As
Yeah.
long as it's not taken away from your hard sessions, as long as you're
Yeah.
actually recovering, and if people like at my level are wanting to run like 4 minute Ks, so like 6:30s. If they were still doing the sessions well, then it's fine. It's like, okay, whatever, you can clearly handle that. But for me, I don't think I could. And the pressure as well of thinking I need to go out and run this at a certain speed like every day, it's too much.
Yeah, I agree with you. I love low intensity training, and I think that is, a lot of people would also be surprised by how much progress or improvement they could have in a marathon distance if they only did low intensity training. I believe that you would, obviously depending on your level, but to a lot of people, I think that just that low intensity training could improve your marathon time. You probably have to add some threshold work in there here and there, but I think even though people are focusing on it, that it might still be a bit underrated how important it is. So I appreciate you saying what you're saying, and then like you just said, the harder sessions need to have that quality and be good. How many harder sessions or workouts do you have per week, and what do they look like?
So in the marathon build, it'll be two. It'll be a Tuesday session, which is usually around 16 to 18K of work, something like 2 by 3K, 3 by 2K, 4 by a K, and then maybe adding some 500s in there if we want a little bit of speed. So that's the Tuesday session. It's usually around half marathon pace and a 10k pace. And then the Friday, we've got a hard long run, which varies quite a lot. I did 3x10k in my most recent marathon build. Things like 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2 Ks with 1k float recovery. So that's like 33k total. And that's the key ones. That's the ones that are kind of make you a bit on edge and wonder why you're going out and running for 2.5 hours on the canal. And then
Yeah.
you just the Sunday long run. I always like it to be a bit quicker than the easy runs. So it's like if I'm easy running at 7:30 per mile, then I'm probably long running at 6:30 per mile. But again, that's just how I feel. There's no pressure on that. It's just naturally I like to run that a bit quicker, with the main goal being getting to Tuesday still ready to go.
And how many hours do you usually log at the end of a week? So with your 105 to 115 mile weeks, how many hours is that for you?
That's definitely a question for the Strava, isn't it? It's I would guess 12, but let's see what
Yeah.
Strava's got to say for itself. Last week was 12. That was
Okay.
104.6 miles. So
Yeah.
yeah, 12 hours plus though a couple of gym sessions in there, which add probably 2 or 3 hours total into the week.
And your gym sessions or your strength training, is that, more functional with elastics, or do you do heavy strength training?
I do heavy strength training. That's something that's never really changed for me because I find that it's been working. Um, I used to lift like a reasonable amount, what I thought was heavy for a runner, and then I spent a few weeks in Flagstaff with a lot of really fast track runners, and they were like, "No, no, no, you have to lift heavier than that." And when I came back from Flagstaff, I was running PBs, so might have been the 7,000 feet, might have been the fact that I was lifting really heavy in the gym, but that's just something that stuck, and it's just finding what works for you. And if you're not getting injured, then there's probably no reason to massively change anything up. I did start adding weight quite quickly at that time, but when you're surrounded by elite runners who are doing the same, you're like, yeah, that's what I'm going to do. And I was fine. And I don't think lifting heavy is necessarily the best thing for the marathon. I know that a lot of people don't lift heavy for the marathon, but just I'm not getting injured, so I'm quite happy keeping that there. And I do also do like a core routine that's just body weight stuff, like hamstring curls on a Swiss ball. It's a core routine. I usually just stick 8-minute abs on YouTube and do that, which is probably not the best thing for a runner to be doing, but it's just so easy. And again, yeah,
You just look up Zac Efron summer body and then you do the workout that comes up.
yeah, the beach body one, that's need to get the spray tan as well.
Awesome. Okay, so when I was going through your Instagram, there was this interview with someone. I don't know what that was. It was some interview on there, and you were asked about bicarb, and that is something that I haven't dived into that part of the training yet, and I know that there are some people arguing that that is not necessarily something that a marathoner would benefit so much from, that it's more for the shorter distances, but I know that you are using it a little bit. And just like for the listeners who are not familiar with that, that is mainly to kind of prevent you from producing as much lactate acid, right? So what is your experience with this? How long have you been using it, and what benefits do you feel like you're getting from that?
So I started using it in about April of this year, and at that point I was training for shorter distances. The main race of that training block ended up being the 10k champs. That was never really the main focus. I thought I was going to be running more 5ks, but my 5k PB was so old that I couldn't get into any fast races, so we had to switch the goal to 10k. But for all those faster track sessions, I was using the bicarb. And for me, it just felt like I knew where I should be getting to the point where, okay, I'm gonna have to start pulling back. Not like necessarily pulling back, but I'm going to be getting pulled back here. And I wasn't getting that. I felt like I could just kind of work faster at a faster pace for the session and not be like completely lactic in the last 200. And obviously you're still feeling that. I still felt that, like, but I was running quicker and the reps were quicker. And for the marathon, I must say that in those marathon sessions, I never really felt the benefits as like for the track session, the benefits were obvious to me. Like I was like, this is working, this is good stuff. I need to keep using this. For the marathon, I never really felt that so much. The main reason I used it for the marathon is because there's so much salt in it and because I've had cramp issues in the past. I felt like in my training it was really helping the cramp. Unfortunately, it didn't work in Berlin, but I think it was just too hot for anything to do anything.
Yeah.
So I would keep using it in the marathon, knowing that it definitely helps my running, knowing that it sits well in my stomach. It just makes me burpy. I know some people do find it gives stomach issues, but it doesn't for me. And knowing that it definitely has enough salt to help me with cramp if it's not like 24, 25 degrees.
So it's not necessarily something that you would recommend to any marathon runner if they're not struggling with cramps or salt. Like in terms of what it's actually for, is that not something that you would say that is a great benefit to a marathoner?
I think it's worth trying it and seeing how you feel with it. I wouldn't get so obsessed that you feel like you need to have it. There's definitely things that are going to help you more, running easier, just doing the longer
Exactly.
marathon
Yeah.
sessions. It's something worth trying because I'm sure there's some people who have trained for 5Ks and 10Ks that don't feel the benefit the same way that I do. And maybe there's people who train for the marathon who swear by it. But just personally for me, I found that the real benefits came from when I was running really hard. And if you are going to mix in a little bit of the speed sessions into your training, like the 3 minute, 2 minute, 1 minute that I was talking about, like try it for that. See if you can get a little bit more out of yourself in that particular session, because if you can push that workout even quicker than you would have by using bicarb, then you're going to get more fitness from it.
Yeah. Thank you. I think it's very interesting to hear more about that, and I'm obviously curious about everything that can potentially make you better, or just to experiment with it. And one of those things that I have up in my fridge right now is Numio, because I got a delivery from them. They told me that I could try it out, and if I like it, we can talk more. But I know that you've been using it. I haven't been able to try it myself yet, but this is a product based on broccoli that you see a lot of professional runners using now, like, and they recommend using it before a hard session or before a race. What is your experience? How long have you been using it? And yeah, again, what benefits do you see with Nomio?
So Nomio is different in that, well, so I only started using this at the start of my most recent marathon block, which there was a couple of days where I didn't feel so great, and I was like, does this thing even work, man? I feel terrible. What's happening here? But then when I actually got into the training, I just felt like it was different. The bicarb is, I would say, you can run quicker and not feel like you're getting pulled back by the lactate. Whereas for the Nomio, for me, feels like I could just suffer a bit more and endure a bit more of that actual, okay, this is really hard now, but I can still keep pushing. Like the amount of sessions I did in that marathon build that I got about halfway through, I was like, there's no way I'm going to be able to do this. This is so hard. And I would just keep going. And that's probably not the best selling point, but actually, I just feel like it just really helped me keep suffering. And I think it does help with the recovery. It's always so hard to tell with things like recovery. Like with bicarb, it's easy. It's like I just ran 208 for an 800. How did I manage that? Oh, wait a minute, I had bicarb 2 hours ago. Whereas, like, with the Nomio, you're like, okay, I feel recovered. Would I have felt recovered anyway? I don't know, but I mean, I feel great. I just ran 55k yesterday. I had the Nomio before the session, Nomio like before bed. Actually, yeah, my legs feel good. So it's difficult to tell if the recovery's helping, like, but it definitely has helped a lot of my workouts. Like, I do notice when I've not taken it, it's one of those ones that's like a bit more subtle in that you're like, okay, this is really hard, but I'm really suffering, I can keep pushing. And then you forget to take it one day and you're like, oh, wait, okay, no, I definitely felt better last week.
Okay, yeah, I'm very curious to try it myself. I think that it's a very interesting product, and you see a lot of athletes using it. And I know that Rory Linkletter, he was also talking about how this marathon block has been so much better, and he kind of said the same thing as you, I think, on another podcast, that he wasn't sure if it was that, but he felt like, taking Nomio had made his block better in some ways, and that it's felt much better and never had that good of a training block. And I think that it's the same as like what you said, that it's impossible to know with the products that we're taking, is it better, because you don't know how it would have felt like if you didn't take it, right? And
Yeah,
then we start getting caught up with all of this. And you and I talked about before we started recording that we're maybe over analyzing running these days. We're making it so complicated compared to what they used to do. And it's hard to tell if we were talking about Jeff Galloway and Prefontaine, and it's hard to know if the performances we see today, if they're actually better than in the 60s, 70s, because the shoes are different, nutrition is different today. There are so many things that will make us faster. And so when my fiance's dad, he did like a 301 marathon in the 60s or 70s. Not sure, it was probably in the 70s or something like that. Maybe later, but regardless, like with bad shoes in our eyes today, it's like, well, then it's really hard to compare my time to his, because we don't know how fast he would have done a marathon if he actually had the super shoes and the gels that we have today and all the knowledge that we have about running and the science of it. So it's an interesting discussion for sure.
yeah. And actually today I met the guy whose club record I took in the 10,000. So he ran 29:37 in the early 90s. And my dad was like, yeah, but he's got the bouncy shoes. You didn't have the bouncy shoes. And in my head, I'm like, I have no idea what I would run in like old spikes because I don't want to run 10k in old spikes. Like, I'd like to think I would still be quicker than 29:37. Like, that's 40 seconds, but I don't know. And it's like, yeah, I have no idea how much these shoes are helping because I do all my hard days in carbons. I've even started doing my long runs in Boston's, which are got a lot of foam and like I don't know how I'd be recovering if I just wore the shoes that they wore in the 90s, and I don't really want to know. I'm quite happy.
No, I don't want to know. I don't want to know either. Last question for you, Ryan, before we end our conversation. 215, I haven't read myself up on the Scottish statistics of marathons. I'm sure you know more than me about that. Like, where are you right now, and what is your goal going forward on the Scottish statistics of the marathon?
So I think I'm ranked about 24th on the Scottish all-time list. And the good thing about that is that I'm ranked similar on the 10k and the 10 mile list. So I know that it wasn't just a fluke. I'm like, okay, that's maybe how good I am. And the Scottish record's Callum Hawkins, that's 208 low. That's probably going to stay there unless he runs
Don't
even
say that.
quicker.
Don't say that. We
It's
don't
going to
know.
stay there for at least a year until I run Valencia next year.
Exactly. Thank you.
But I could get to about four. I think fifth right now is like 2:11:30. There's a really big gap to a couple of guys who have run 2:08, 2:09. And after my 10K, I was like, could I run something like that one day? Like, I like to think I could run 2:12. Like, that's actually a time goal that I think is within my reach in the foreseeable future. It's like, if I can just keep stacking marathon blocks until I'm 35, 40, could I run 2:10, 2:11? Maybe. I never thought I could run 2:15. And the goal's always just going to be to run as fast as possible and to get as far up that all-time list as possible. And win a senior Scottish title is my goal that I need, because I'm kind of at that point now when I'm like, okay, I'm 24th on the all-time list. Am I the fastest runner on this list who's never won a senior Scottish title? That's not a good place to be. I need to actually win something before I'm anywhere near done with this sport.
Love that. That's a great goal and a great way to end this chat. I really appreciate you coming on, and I recommend to all the listeners to go check you out on Instagram, but also on YouTube. You have some good videos out there, and if some people are craving some Scottish content, Scottish accent on there, I recommend doing so and to follow your journey. Thank you again, Ryan, and good luck with your goals. And I hope that you'll get a Scottish Championships medal, like gold medal, at some point. And yeah, thank you for everything that you shared today.
Thank you very much. You'll be the first to hear about my Scottish gold medal on Instagram, don't worry.
Awesome. We'll have to have you back on when you get there.
That would be amazing. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
I guess you now understand what I mean by this conversation feeling like two friends just catching up. I had such a good time with Ryan, and honestly, this is one of the things that I love about the Marathon Podcast, probably the thing that I love the most. I'm getting friends all over the world, and I really feel like I belong in this community, and that's something that I really appreciate. So thanks for listening to the Marathon Podcast. Again, please follow this podcast in your app and give it a review, and I'll talk to you in the next one. You listen to the Marathon Podcast, brought to you by Wall Studio.